Our first subjective domain is describing artificial intelligent workloads and the considerations that go along with that. With this subjective domain, we have two areas that we'll be taking a look at. The first one is identifying features of common AI workloads and identifying guiding principles for responsible AI. Let's go ahead and begin with our first objective domain of the day. Now, if you're new to Microsoft exams, it's important to understand that the objective domains break down all of the information that's going to be covered in the exam. So for our first objective domain, we're going to be looking at an overview of an introduction to artificial intelligence in general. And this objective domain accounts for about 15 to 20% of your overall exam. So it is important that you pay attention. Now, artificial intelligence allows us to create some amazing products, some amazing software, and it allows you and empowers you to create an incredible experience through entertainment and infrastructure, and even save the planet. So we're going to take you through the basics of artificial intelligence and what you need to know for the exam. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's go ahead and start with identifying the different features of common AI workloads. Now, with artificial intelligence, there's a couple of things that we need to understand. The purpose of AI is to replicate or try to emulate human behavior through a computer. Now, some of these key elements include making decisions based off of data and past experiences, detecting different anomalies, interpreting visual input, understanding written and spoken language, and engaging in dialogue and different conversations. Now, we're going to be looking at each of these different AI workloads today through machine learning, anomaly detection, computer vision, natural language processing, and conversational AI. But what I really want to make sure that you understand is all of these are here to emulate the different capabilities that humans have. So there are different behaviors and our experiences. So let's go ahead and talk about machine learning first. With machine learning, what we have predictive models that are based off of different data and statistics. And this is essentially the foundation for AI because this is the way that we are teaching a computer. Just like we have different experiences that teach us. So what we want to do, what we're helping to have when we teach a computer is that then it's able to make predictions and draw conclusions based off the data that we're providing it. A really great example of this, and it's actually one of my favorite, is that there are sustainable farming techniques that are essential to maximize food production. But at the same time, we want to protect what is a really fragile environment. So what we have is there's this organization or an architectural technology company called The Yield, and they're based in Australia. And what they do is they use sensors and data and different machine learning models to help the farmers to make informed decisions. And these decisions are based off of the weather and all of that data they collected. And so they know when is the soil best for what plant, when do they harvest it. And again, instead of just going off of the experience of a farmer who's been doing this for years, they're going based off of the data that they've collected, ultimately to help their machine learning model make a decision. Let's go ahead and talk about the anomaly detection. So with anomaly detections, this is where you have then trained your machine learning model to look for different patterns or unusual events that oftentimes can help make you be more proactive rather than reactive. So where we may have, for example, we're looking for our AI solution to look for errors or maybe unusual activity. Funny story for you. I had my credit card and, I do my regular shopping or things like that. And I actually went to a hardware store and, I made a small purchase for doing a little bit of DIY repairs around my house. And what happened was apparently, based off of my usual shopping activity, that transaction at that hardware store was really outside of my pattern of usual shopping. And so it was flagged as unusual usage patterns. And so what my credit card company flagged this as is potential fraud. So they called me and said, hey, did you make this purchase at the hardware store? That's not normal for you. And, I was a little embarrassed, but yeah, I did make that purchase. But imagine if I hadn't. Because it saw that unusual activity, they were able to detect it and alert me before potentially anything could happen in the event that it was taken. With computer vision, this is, again, we're talking about that visual input. So we're emulating a human's ability to see. So applications that interpret visual inputs, whether it's from cameras or images or videos, are using computer vision. Now, a really cool example of this is a Scene artificial intelligence app that is taking the power of computer vision, and it's used and it's designed to help those in the blind or low vision community. And what the Scene AI app does is it harnesses the power of AI to open up the visual world and describe nearby people or read text out loud or describe the different objects. So computer vision is actually personally one of my favorite areas, but what we look at when we think about computer vision is that we're taking on different tasks that you do naturally as a person, whether you're classifying images or recognizing where an object is. We also have that semantic segmentation, image analysis, face detection, recognition, and even optical character recognition. All of that is just taking in that visual input and then using it in some other way. With natural language processing, again, this is emulating the human's ability to interpret written or spoken language. And natural language processing, that's where we want to either have an input from the user, whether it's text or speech, and having that AI solution understand it. So let's take an example, a video game. So let's take Starship Commander. This is actually a virtual reality game, and it's from Human Interact. And what it does is it's taking place in this really cool science fiction environment. So the way that the game works is it uses natural language processing to enable players to control the narrative and interact with the game in the Starship systems. So your character, you in the physical world, are actually talking and speaking with a character in a virtual world, and the artificial intelligence behind it can understand it. And that leads us into our final area, which is that conversational AI. Now, as far as conversational AI goes, there's a good chance that you've already used this in your day-to-day life. This is where you use AI agents, or what we most commonly refer to them as is bots, that you engage with in dialogue. So where this is really great is, think of an organization that maybe takes work orders, maybe a plumbing company, and, you have someone who needs service, but people don't work 24/7 in all cases. But if you have a chat bot, maybe on your website or through your phone or maybe through an app even, you can actually have your users interact with this AI agent and allow them to answer questions such as when are you open and different things like that. So let's go ahead and find out, when we talk about all these AI categories, let's find out what Azure specifically offers when it comes to artificial intelligence. Now, Microsoft Azure is a really huge, scalable, reliable cloud platform for a number of different services, but today we're going to be specifically looking at AI. Now, let's look at some of our key AI-related services. The first one is going to be Azure Machine Learning. Now, this is a platform for training and deploying and managing your machine learning models. This is, for an example, if you had your own algorithms and you wanted to test and train them, you would use the Azure Machine Learning. Now, if you're like me and not a data scientist, and I'm not the one writing all of the algorithms and testing and training them, but maybe I still do want to use an AI solution, well, that's where you can take advantage of Azure's cognitive services. And what this is a suite of different services that your developers can use to build AI solutions that are off the shelf and ready to use. And then finally, the last one I want to talk about is going to be our Azure bot services. And if you do need to use a chat bot or an agent or an AI agent, you can actually use the Microsoft Azure bot services to quickly develop that. So that is looking at some of the different AI features inside of the different AI workloads. Now, it's really important we understand the guiding principles for using AI and how to use it responsibly. So why don't we go ahead and start with that? Now, what we have here at Microsoft is we have the 6 principles of responsible AI. And this is to ensure that AI applications are providing amazing solutions to some of really difficult problems without any type of negative or unintended consequences. Now, because artificial intelligence is such a powerful tool, and it can be used to benefit the entire world, but with great power comes great responsibility. And that's where we've come up with these 6 principles to help make sure that we are using AI responsible. So the first one is fairness. All AI systems should treat people fairly. For example, a machine learning model to support a loan approval application for a bank should make predictions on whether or not a loan should be approved, but it needs to do that without incorporating any bias based on gender, ethnicity, or really any other factors that might result in an unfair advantage or even disadvantage for a specific group of applicants. With reliability and safety, oh my gosh, this is so important. Systems should perform reliably and safely. I mean, for example, if we have a machine learning model that's diagnosing patients and symptoms and recommending prescriptions, unreliability in a system could cause substantial risk to human life. And with privacy and security, we want to make sure that all of the data and everything that's getting put into these machine learning models is respecting privacy and it is secure. I mean, we're talking about massive amount of data that is going into train these machine learning models. And some of these may contain some personal details. So you're wanting to make sure that you're keeping that private and secure. Inclusive AI systems should empower everyone and everything to engage different people. I mean, one of the cool things about AI in general is it can bring those who are differently able together. So, for example, you want to make sure that you are creating AI solutions that benefit all parts of society, regardless of physical ability, gender, or sexual orientation, ethnicity, or really any other factor. Next is transparency. AI systems need to be understandable. I mean, when you're interacting with an AI system, whoever's using it should be made fully aware of the purpose of the system, how it works, if there's any limitations. I mean, if you're chatting with a virtual bot, well, you need to know that you're talking with a bot and not an actual human. So you want to make sure that you're transparent in your solution. Lastly is accountability. People need to be held accountable for their AI systems. So if you are going to implement an AI system, your developers, your designers, or anyone involved in that development of that AI solution, they're going to need to have a framework of governance and organizational principles that meet both ethical and legal standards. That is actually the end of our first objective domain. We took a look at a number of different topics, so why don't we do a quick knowledge check to check on your preparedness for some of the exam questions that you might face. Let's start with question 1. Now, in the exam, there are going to be several different types of the questions. One type is where you might see a brief scenario or situation that's going to be described. And they're going to be asked to make a correct choice from the list of options. So what I have here on the screen is a sample question based off of the first objective domain. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a chance to read the question, and then I'm going to give you 30 seconds to respond. All right, so question 1. You want to create a model to predict sales of ice cream based on historic data that include daily ice cream sales total and weather measurements. Which Azure service should you use? And you're going to select from one of these three answers. 1, Azure Machine Learning. 2, the Q&A Maker. Or 3, Text Analytics. I'm going to give you 30 seconds now to respond. The correct answer is Azure Machine Learning. Remember, Azure Machine Learning enables you to train a predictive model from existing data. Let's go ahead and try question 2. With question 2, it's asking, you want to train a model that classifies an image of dogs and cats based on a collection of your own digital photographs. Which Azure service should you use? Is it 1, Azure Bot Service, 2, Custom Vision, or 3, Computer Vision? Please go ahead and select one now. I'll give you 30 seconds to choose. The correct answer is Custom Vision. This is where you are using a collection of your own digital photographs and you are training an Azure Machine Learning model. All right, great job on those questions. Let's go ahead and do a quick recap of what we covered in our first objective domain. Now, first, what we looked at is we looked at the common AI workloads, and those included machine learning, anomaly detection, computer vision, natural language processing, and conversational AI. You will definitely want to make sure that you understand what each of those are used for and some examples for your exam. Next, we looked at the different offerings of artificial intelligence inside of Microsoft Azure, whether that included Azure Machine Learning Studio, the bot services, as well as cognitive services. And then finally, we closed out with the principles of responsible AI, which are so incredibly important as you begin to implement AI solutions in your own organization.